Welcome to the Creative Brew, helping you keep your creative juices brewing. We're giving out chunks of insight, motivation, and practicality for your creative journey. My next partner is Elevate Coffee Trading, and if you appreciate specialty coffee, enjoy outdoor adventure, and love helping elevate the lives of children around the world, then you're going to love Elevate Coffee Trading. Their mission is to extract hope through love, coffee, and adventures. There's free shipping in the United States, and every bag of coffee helps sponsor health and education for children in coffee-producing countries and in areas of need in the United States. You can use promo code ELEVATE21 on your next order, and you can follow their journey on social media at Elevate Coffee Trading. Or you can visit online at elevatecoffeetrading.com, and let's start extracting hope together. And this show is brought to you by Tennessee Grappling Apparel, based out of the Knoxville area. Lifestyle wear for the modern wrestler or grappler. Use the promo code CB10 on your next purchase at TennesseeGrapplingApparel.com. Welcome to a new episode of The Creative Brew, giving you insights on your creative journey. Today, we got a good friend of mine, Jesse Drennan, the owner of Bmoney, Beastin Athletics. We're talking about the brand, and this is actually a brand that I'm partnering up with, and he's actually just released a new wrestling shoe. But like I said, he's got a whole brand and an incredible story that I really believe that everyone needs to hear, and really trying to figure out how to disrupt the industry somewhat. So I'll let Jesse sort of share his story, and then we'll get going.
What's up, man? It's always great to see you. Talk to you, drive you crazy most of the time. Hey, man, can we do this? Can we do that? Dude, I guess I'm just going to go back and kind of tell like how it happened, how all this kind of came to be. First and foremost, I'll throw this out here. I was not a great wrestler myself. All right. I was not. I was a pretty good football player, but I was not a great wrestler. Wrestlers have to go for minutes at a time. I was good for about seconds at a time. So like that kind of correlated more to football. Dude, this has been a crazy thing. When my son was 5, Xbox was like, they were around that time. It was getting hot and popular, playing online and shooting games and all that stuff. And he came up with the name Bmoney Beastin, and it had the apostrophe and the dollar sign in front of the B. And it's coming from a 5-year-old, right? I don't know why now this is 9 years ago. And I don't know why I thought it was so cool, but I was like, dude, it's something there. I didn't know what it was, why, but I thought it was really cool. And I wrote it down. I had it in my wallet for like the longest time. And then when Bryson started playing on social media, he would hashtag everything Bmoney Beastin. Don't know why, but it just kind of started, and then it just kind of snowballed. And it was like, this is cool, but what is it? Like, we still didn't know like what it was or why it was there. Almost a year and a half ago. Has it been that long? About a year and a half ago now, maybe?
Yeah.
About a year and a half ago. I had been pondering for months. I'm like, I want to do something with this. And my dad kept telling me, he's like, you need to do something with this Bmoney Beastin. And I'm like, well, what do I do with it? Is it a gym? Like, do I open a gym and call it Bmoney Beastin? What is it? And he's like, dude, sell t-shirts. And I'm like, oh, well, okay. So originally the idea was I'm going to print some t-shirts and shorts. And I thought, like, when I was a kid, I grew up in like a poverty-stricken area, right? And I didn't have a whole lot. And my uncle used to take me to Kmart back then, right? I don't think there's one open anymore, but Kmart was a big conglomerate back in the day. And they always sold Everlast, the brand Everlast.
Yeah.
And it was reasonably cheap, right? Like, it was affordable for everybody. And my uncle would always pick me up and always kind of look after me. And I know you follow me on Facebook and stuff, so you send me posts about my Uncle Roger sometimes. That's why I'm so close to that guy. He like took me under his wing and took care of me as a kid and stuff. I love the dude. I'd do anything for him. But he would always buy me like Everlast clothes, like shorts and hoodies and whatever. And it was reasonably affordable. So I'm like, okay, that doesn't exist anymore, really. I'm sure there's something somewhere, but you don't see it. Champions becoming like something that's like really expensive now. It's like kind of like popping now and turning into like another Nike or Under Armour. And one's kind of vanishing outside of like Walmart stores, right? And one was a big thing for a long time, and it was
Yep.
affordable. So I'm like, maybe Bmoney Beastin can fit into that role. How do I get there? So that's when I actually reached out to you, right? And I was like, hey, I don't know how to do this, but I need this. I need this put on. I need it visual, right? Like I know what it says. I need it to pop. And dude, you are 100% responsible for what the brand looks like, feels like. It's awesome. When I got there, I was like, I tried numerous things, right? Like I was like, maybe I'll do like sports specific shirts or sports specific for this and try to cover everything and make it reasonably affordable. But I was like, everybody's doing this, right? Like I don't want to be like everybody else and trying to break into something that a lot of people are trying to do. And I was like, where is something, a niche that I can fill that would help people, or well, in my mind, help kids, right? Because I'm all about kids, and would make a difference. And I look back, and Bryson's been wrestling since he was like 6 years old, right?
Mhm.
And what's one thing I've spent a shit ton of money on is wrestling shoes, right? Like, and I was like, dude, there's really not a wrestling shoe, right? That out there that's within reason, right? Like a reason, like say a kid just wants to try it, right? Why would a mom and dad want to spend $160 for them to try a sport they may quit in a week, right? So it's like that niche really wasn't there. And that's when I started doing research. And eventually I found a vendor that made the version ones that are right here. That you got a pair of that you've been repping in the gym, dude. I love it. And then now, you know, we've talked already, like we got this version 2 coming, this mesh shoe. And, you know, we're sitting around, you know, a $40, $45 price range, which is kind of unheard of, right? And because if you go on right now, like I kind of looked and we talked about it before, but there's like maybe 2 variations of a shoe that's even in that range, and it's got like $20 shipping. So you're still spending $60, $70, right? So like we're kind of opening that market that's really not there. And I feel like my goal, and I've told you this before, is like for every 2 pairs, we need to donate a pair and make a difference in, you know, there could be a kid that, you know, say he wants to try something, he's scared to ask, or he doesn't have a way, or he can't get any. Say we change that kid's life, man, right? Like he tries out wrestling and eventually goes to college, he becomes All American, change his whole life. Not saying that's going to happen every time, but just getting somebody active. And I think about like if they're on a mat and they're being held accountable to keep their grades up, there's a lot of good that can come from this. And it's something that just really don't exist. So like I think this is like the market. And of course, you know, like I want to do other things and I'm going to keep doing that. Like I got some football stuff back here, receiver gloves and back plates and some cool stuff. But I think the affordable wrestling shoe is kind of like what Bmoney Beastin Athletics is going to be. And I think that's where we're going to head with that. And, you know, eventually I would love to be like the guy, the company, you know, us, like even you know, how we're all involved now, like our group here to be kind of the springboard to a Rudis or a Nike or something like that. But like we're like the springboard to the bigger guys, right? Like we get guys started. So that's what I'm trying to build here. And dude, this has been the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
Yeah, I think a lot of people don't realize. I mean, they'll say, "Hey, I want to start this company or I want to start this brand," and I think people don't realize the sacrifice, the amount of energy invested, even the just the overall direction on where to go, who your audience is, what is your mission, how do you like all that stuff plays a part as far as building a overall business and brand and keeping it consistent. So for even for you, what's been your experience? What is the mindset? Maybe something that anyone that's listening right now and maybe they can sort of get some inspiration or some motivation from you. What is the mindset needed for you to start with something or start from nothing at all and then build it, just build something out of it? What do you feel like from a mindset standpoint? What does that take?
Man, if and I've always said this, and I'll go back to tell you what I'm going to say. My career as a professional adult, right, has been in the cable industry, right? That's been like my job forever. I started as a as back in the day, there was a different pecking order than it is now, but I started as an installer and was moved to a service tech, and then I was a system tech. At one point, I was a trainer for some contractors. I did a little bit of everything. I worked with head ends. I did all kinds of crazy stuff. And climbing poles at 3 a.m. with a headlamp. Yeah, I did it. Yeah. And back then, people would ask me, like, I was almost always the last guy into the shop, right? And they're like, why are you always the last one in here? It's like, well, I do it right? I'm passionate about it. And if you don't care about what you're doing, you're not going to go very far, right? I feel like you got to have like a passion for it. Like I told you when we started this, I was not a great wrestler. I'll admit that, right? But I wasn't passionate about it either, right? I was passionate about playing football. I like Friday nights and cheerleaders and the lights and all that, right? So, but now that I've seen what it's done for my son, right? Like I'm very passionate about it, and I've met so many great people, including yourself. But to be, and I'm nowhere where I want to be, right? Like I'm striving every day to get there. But Steve Jobs said this once, that anybody that does something like we're doing, you have to be passionate about it, or any normal person would quit, right? Because it is hard, right? And one thing that I look back on over this short-term experience, what is it, 18 months or whatever it's been, I've spent money that I might as well set on fire, right? Because I'm like, oh, this is what I'm, nah. And then I spend this money. I'm like, well, it's gone. I've tried different approaches towards different people. Um, like I'll tell you one story here that'll blow your mind. 3 weeks after I had my LLC, and I think it's 3 or 4 weeks. It was right after you sent me the first run of the logos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I printed up a handful of Bmoney Beastin athletic shirts, the black ones with that, like I'm wearing now, but this is the wrestling version, but like that. And I had there's a girl, there's maybe a block or two down the street. And she was like, she seen me wearing a hoodie and she's like, hey, that's pretty cool. I was like, yeah, I'm starting this like apparel brand at the time, right? It's apparel brand. And she's like, yeah, I want one. I said, well, $15, I'll leave it in your mailbox. She's like, cool. So I left it in her mailbox and I didn't think nothing else about it. 2 weeks passed, and turns out she worked for a little company here called ProAd Sports. And they do all the you ever go, y'all got Dollar Generals? I know you know what Dollar General is, you're from here, but wherever you go in the country, they're in the middle of nowhere. But they all do like the local high schools, like say like here in Rossville, we got Ridgeland, right? So the one up here says Ridgeland High School and the Panthers. And then if you go to Ringgold or Cleveland, says Cleveland Blue Raiders, like whatever. Well, they do all that in Fort Oglethorpe, right? Like for across the country, like all of it. And this guy calls me and he goes, man, I don't know what it is you're doing, but this is interesting. Would you like to have a meeting? I was like, sure. I'm like, dude, did I really just hit this that fast? That's what I'm thinking in my head, right? And I go to this meeting. This day, I still don't believe I had the guts to say this, but I did. We went in, and I'm sitting with these two guys. Now, dude, I'm in flip flops and a tank top. All right, like I'm laid back. I got a cap on. These guys are in suits, and this woman walks in, and she was like a buyer for Dollar General. And she looks at me and she says, this is really interesting what you're trying to do with the affordable branding. This maybe could fit in our stores. And she said something about how she wanted to give me 5 stores as a trial. Well, you're from this area, right? Sale Creek's in the middle of nowhere, right? Jasper's in the middle of nowhere. She was trying to put me in the furthest like middle of nothing, and she was going to give me 0 royalty fee, and she wanted to give me a sales percentage. And I thought to myself, I'm like, this can't work. So I really had to, I had the guts to tell this lady, like, look, this ain't gonna work. This doesn't work for me. And there's gonna come a day and time where you can't afford to buy what I have. And I got up, I shook the guy's hand, and I walked out. To this day, I still don't believe I had the guts to say that. But looking at it, it goes back to what you just asked me. I'm so passionate about it. And you know this because I talk to you. I send you texts at like 2 a.m. sometimes and just like, don't answer me. Just know I got an idea on my brain. So it's like, I wouldn't want to cheapen it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I'm passionate about it. And I didn't want it to fail without getting legs. Now, if 10 years from now it does fail, that's one thing. But I'm going to put everything into it in my soul before I let it go that far. Like I'm putting everything, all my resources, everything that I can do. My, you know what's really cool? And if this is as big as it gets, I'm happy. My little neighborhood I live in, there's so many neighborhood kids, right? That they come by all the time and like, dude, that's so cool. Dude, that's so cool. And I'm like, man, that really? Y'all like that? Yeah, dude, that's so cool. You know how many hoodies I've gave away? And I went to the middle school a couple weeks ago and, I forget about it, right? I got a million things. I forget about it. I go to the middle school. I had to pick up Bryce or Zach. One of them had a doctor's appointment. And I see like 5 kids in a line. Like they have like a line for the 6th grade or whatever it was. And there's like 5 of those kids with something Bmoney Beastin on, right? And I'm like, that's cool. And I'm like, that's so cool. And I gave them all a fist bump and like a thumbs up. And I'm like, that's kind of what this is about, right? Like, I want to give back. And like the town I live in and the median income is $20,000 a year, right? If I didn't find a career outside of here, I would make $20,000 a year, right? But I grew up as a kid here that had a parent that was making less than $20,000 a year. So I am one of these kids, right? Like that's what drives me, right? Is that I remember stealing. I didn't steal it. I put it back every day, but I borrowed the neighbor's bike. I remember this. I was like 10 years old, man, and I had to get to football practice. It's a long walk, right? So then I would borrow the neighbor's bike that he was leaving his yard. I'd put my shoulder pads on one end, my helmet on the other, and I'd go to practice. And then I'd be pedaling in the dark, scared to death, getting home, and I'd leave it in his yard and run home. I didn't have a ride. I just wanted to do it. And I was one of those kids. So like that makes me happy to give back in any way I can. And I really think that this coming year is going to be a really telling thing with Bmoney Beastin because now like we're so far in front of when the season's going to start, we can really make a big difference, I think, in beginner wrestlers or even underprivileged wrestlers. And I think that'll make a big difference in maybe getting more people into the sport, which would be great, I think, because it holds you so accountable and there's so many lessons from it. And I told someone yesterday, I said, there's so many people I've met that are former wrestlers and they're all like great human beings, right? Like they're just great human beings. And I think that if more and more kids get involved, and even if they only wrestle 8 weeks, wrestle the middle school season, or just, they're being active, they're being held accountable in the classroom, they're being held accountable in a wrestling practice. Like there's a lot that they have to watch their weight, which teaches them discipline, right? There's a lot of things there. And I think that's why I'm so passionate about this wrestling shoot is I think it can make a difference for somebody like I was at one time in my life. And to answer your question, passion. If you don't have passion, you can't do it. Like, cause you're going to quit cause it's very, very hard. You know it and I know it.
Yeah. I know there's been, there's been more than a lot of times where, I felt like, like, man, is this what I need to be doing or do I give this up? And it's been weird. Every time that I've, said, hey, I think I need to sort of quit this, something pops up that sort of reaffirms that, hey, look, you're going the right path. We may have to just be a little bit more patient. I think sometimes, even with anybody that's trying to start out something or trying to build something, it's just one of those where we just have to have more patience. And what I've actually heard recently was an aggressive patience. So not just being patient, sort of twiddling your thumbs, like, hey, you know, it's going to happen in 10 years. Like, keep doing the work, keep doing the things that you're doing, go towards that goal. But no, you know, the things that you've been putting out in the universe, it may not come back to you for 5 years, 10 years. But when it does, it's gonna, you know, it's gonna be like a tidal wave of everything. So I think be aggressively patient, keep going towards the goal, but know, hey, you know, what Bmoney Beastin could be. It may not, like I said, it may not, and we've talked about this before, it may not come to fruition for the full vision of it. It may be 4 or 5 years or longer, but when it
Right.
does, it's gonna be, you know, it's gonna be a beautiful thing. You know, I am real big with collaborations and partnerships, and you know, even like I said, having the opportunity to try the shoes out and testing them out, and I mean, they feel great. Even the version ones, can't wait for the version twos to pop out. But the version ones feel great. They're lightweight. Even when I go to some of the, you know, for people that don't know me, you know, I help train MMA fighters, and I'm usually helping out with the junior college team out here, and yeah, they love them. So it's yeah, it's one of those where I think it's definitely, you know, slowly but surely, you know, the more people take notice of them, and you know, just building that interest, but it'll get there. I think your mission and your vision, um, and what you're doing, even with your background, I think that's something that's going to push the brand to, you know, to incredible limits. And you know, I think as long as you have that passion and drive, I mean, I think that's the part of any building any kind of great brand. You know, even being in wrestling, yeah, you know, I encourage, matter of fact, PSA, I encourage any kid, even adults, you know, try out wrestling. I teach adult class, and we've got people that's never wrestled before in their lives, and they come in there, and I show them different things, and their eyes are just blown away. Like, hey, you know, I actually pulled off this move, or
Oh,
so
good.
it's just one of those where, yeah, I mean, I try to help, you know, from kids to adults, you know, try out wrestling, try it out. I'm not saying you got to be, you know, Olympic or world champ or national champ or all American. Those are, you know, very, very, you know, great goals to strive for. That's if you're serious into it, but at least give it a try. I mean, I know so many people that didn't, you know, they wasn't like the best high school or college wrestler, but they went on to, you know, to become a doctor. They went on to start a business or you know,
Oh
start
yeah.
organizations. So yeah, it's just one of those where I definitely encourage anybody that's, you know, if they're thinking about wrestling or maybe getting their kids in wrestling, do it. I mean, it you know, creates so much character and resilience and a lot of intrinsic qualities that I really feel like kids need today. You know, being in wrestling or even other sports too as well. Um, you know, I'm not going to be biased, but I think all that encourages, you know, a lot of stuff that kids need now, and even adults. You know, I'm a, you know, I'll train adults, and you know, this is you got some of them like, hey, have you ever done? We'll do warm ups. I'm like, hey, has everyone ever done a cartwheel? And I'll have like two people raise their hand. I'm like, okay, so now we have to train how to do a cartwheel, and but it's one of those where you have to be willing to. Um, I think when you get to a certain point, you have to be willing to unlearn certain things. Sometimes we learn so much, and we feel like we've gotten to a point where we have arrived. We have to be willing to let go of all that and say, you know what? Let's just start back from the beginning. I mean, even when I train, I mean, I go back to the beginning fundamental stuff, just to, you know, work on little wrinkles, even when I'm training, but just being willing just to be open minded, just to learn. And I think sometimes we get to that certain stage when we grow up, we feel like we know it all, and we don't. We're still learning. So
That's something with wrestling that I think is an ongoing thing, right?
yeah,
Like,
yep,
and I don't feel like when you're a football player, if you look at Ray Lewis, I'm going to use Ray Lewis because to me he was the greatest linebacker maybe ever. He was crazy athletic. He had just, and you know, he was a state champion wrestler in Florida, by the way. Just throwing that out there. He, if you watch Ray Lewis tackle, he had almost perfect form tackle. When you run a 4-4 and you can wrap up the way he did, head across, like that takes talent, right? But I mean, there's really nothing else to perfect. He's got the first step, wrap, And wrestling, you're never a professional at everything, right? You're just not. You'll never be, right?
Yeah.
Like I'll sit sometimes and watch like practice, right? I don't do it often. I'm trying to not be crazy wrestling dad, right? So I drop him off and I just take off. But sometimes you'll watch practice and I'll look around the room and say there's 50 kids there. Every one of them's got a different style and a different thing, their strengths and weaknesses. And like something that drives me crazy about my own kid, right? Kid can't sprawl, save his life. He wins a lot, can't sprawl, save his life. He will let anybody on his legs, right? He's just so funky. And Pitts taught him a crackdown a few years ago, right? And he's perfected that crackdown, right? Like perfected it. And it's crazy because 2 years ago when we went out to Tulsa, he learned that on a Wednesday. He used it in every single match when we were at Tulsa. And from then on, he just like, that's what he does. He's like, yeah, go ahead and shoot on me. I don't care. I'll find a way out of it. And it drives me insane, right? I'm like, it's simple, just sprawl. But like,
side note, Pitts was a master at that. We was on the same team. We both was at UTC. He was a monster at that. So shout out to my boy Pitts.
I love Matt, dude. You know, and he taught him that, and I'll never forget it because like I remember him doing a little private with him. We were down in Dalton at like this jiu-jitsu gym, and he was trying to get on weight too because it was like I think it was like Wednesday, and we had to weigh in like the next day, so we were leaving right after that, something like that, right? And he was teaching him this crackdown. And then his first match, he lost like 4-3, and then he went on a run and he placed, and he was so excited. He cried. He was crying when the match was over. That was like a good moment, right? Like whether anything ever happens with it, I don't know, but it was cool. And I remember like throughout that tournament, he was letting kids on his legs and he was hitting that damn crackdown. And I'm like, really? You did it like once? Like maybe y'all did it a lot and I didn't know it, but I've seen it this time one time, and like you're hitting it over and over and over, and that's great, you know? But nobody's like, what I'm getting at from what I've noticed throughout this time, and I've kind of lived through my son with this because now I ain't went through all the crazy 3-a-days that he went through up at like Jeff Jordan's camp or any of that stuff. But like I've watched and observed, nobody's like, all right, who's the best in the country right now? I know Spencer Lee got upset, but he's maybe the best pure wrestler in the country. Maybe you think Yanni, you know, those guys.
Yeah, right now I'm gonna say either Yanni or Vito right now.
Okay, well we'll take either one.
I'm saying. Yeah.
Either one. Just take one of those guys, right? They have weaknesses, right? That they've worked on for years and years and years. You're never gonna. What I'm getting at is comparing football and I'm just comparing football to wrestling. But like Ray Lewis, first step, head across, wrap up. He's got it done. There's really nothing else there, right? You drop into coverage, pretty simple. I'm going to sit 5 yards back and drop 5 yards in the flat. He's got it. But wrestlers, they are always trying to improve because they're never going to hit that peak of perfection, right? I think that's what I'm trying to get at. And even football players aren't perfect. What I'm getting at, there's really nothing else to really learn, right? You got it. First step, head across, wrap. And then you got wrestlers who are always learning new technique. They're never going to perfect it all. You just can't, right? And you see one guy that's like great on his feet, and you see another guy that can't do anything on his feet, but like on bottom, he's a killer, right? And then it's crazy how that works. And that's something else, right? Like with kids, like you're talking about, like put them in a sport. Man, I did spend several years as that crazy wrestling dad. Over the years, like looking back on it, I went through the ups and downs with him, right? Like, and the highs are really great. Like, you know that, right? The highs are great. And the lows hurt. They hurt, right? They hurt. And it's because of how much work you put into it. And that's the same thing right now with Bmoney Beastin, right? Like just a few days ago, I think I told you this, like out of nowhere, we sold, it's March, dude. Nobody's playing football right now, right? Nobody's playing football. It's March, and we sold 2 anti-fog visors to somebody in Rhode Island. Dude, I'm in Georgia. I don't even know how that happened, okay? So, but that was the high, right? But then before that, we went like 2 weeks in between sales, right? So that was a low. So I feel like that correlates so much with real life, right? Like it just does. And the more kids that you can get involved in that, and and they have to learn how to be accountable to themselves too. And like as a football player, like I've done it a million times. Did you play football in high school?
No, I attempted to my senior year. By that time, I was already sort of fully committed to to wrestling. I was
Okay.
yeah, so yeah, I attempted to my senior year, and I gave it up. I gave it up. But I did play. I ended up playing a season of semi-pro football some years
Did you
later.
really?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So
Well,
but
what position did you play? I'm just curious.
they had me at a running back and like a slot receiver.
Okay. Well, for instance, all right, and I don't know this happened in your scenario, but for me, you'll understand this since you did do it a little bit. I played like defensive end, outside linebacker in high
Mhm.
school, and I remember like say your teammate missed a tackle, right? It broke like a corner missed a tackle. Dude, you're over there chewing them. You didn't make the play, whatever, blah blah. Blah. Dude, and that's something else that I don't feel like I learned the accountability that I should have. I think I should have really bought more into wrestling because I would have learned how to be more accountable to myself. Because in football, you got 10 other teammates and you can blame them, right? It's their fault, right? It's like this didn't happen, this didn't happen. You can't do that in the sport of wrestling. So it's like maybe this is what and everybody, we've all seen it, right? They put out these middle school rankings and these youth rankings and all these crazy competitive people, and that's cool, right? It's all good, and you don't have to go that far with it, right? Like you don't have to like try to chase what everybody else is doing, right? I think, and I don't do that, right? Like we do maybe one or two a year where we go somewhere and then we just kind of wrestle as local as we can, and you know I feel like staying in the room and being, held accountable by a coach, right? I think that can make you as good as, like, if you think about it, like Jordan Burroughs said one time that he didn't leave the state of New Jersey till he was in high school, right? So it's like, I think a lot of that is overkill, but that's my opinion, right? I mean, it's cool, but I don't think you got to do everything, right? Like I think that scares parents off with wrestling. Dude, I got to go to Virginia and I got to go to Oklahoma and I got to go to Missouri and I got to go here and I mean, I get it, dude. Like those trips are expensive.
Mhm.
Like we went to VAC this year, right? And um, we weren't going to go, right? It's expensive. He didn't want to cut weight. Like we weren't going to go. And then last minute, Sean Russell's like, "Hey man, well, he wrestled 84." I was like, "Dude, he's gonna get killed at 84. He's tiny at 84." So, oh man, it'd be fine. He went I think he went what, like 2-6 out there. He was like a baby wrestling grown men, right? Like it was crazy. And and he had that was a moment in time where it was almost a good thing, right? And this is part of what I'm telling you here with why I think this is so crucial for kids. Like he loses, everybody loses, but he's never got his ass kicked quite like that, right? Like he wrestled this kid from California that walked out, it looked like he drove there and had 5 kids, right? And the kid like threw him in, like he went to shoot on this kid. The kid locked him up in a cradle, picked him up like this, right? Like it looked like, you ever seen Twins with Danny DeVito and Arnold Schwarzenegger?
Yeah.
Like it looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger like picked up Danny DeVito and just like dropped him on his head. And dude, he was sitting over by the wall and he was like crying and he was like lost. He's like, I don't know what to do, dude. I ain't never been beat up like this, dude. Maybe I suck. Like he was trying to figure it out, like what's happened. And but he pushed through it. He finished the duel. We went home. We regrouped, and 2 days later, he's back in the room and never looked back. Right. So that's kind of the resilience and like the attitude you learn by doing this. It's not always going to go your way. It's just not. And that's the same thing in life. So if there's a way to get kids introduced to the sport and it costs under $50 to get their shoes, and if eventually we can find a way to do like a low cost headgear, things like that to where it's not a bad option to try, I think that would be it could change a lot of kids' lives, right? And every area I feel like has like a small AAU, right? Like they could be introduced to it. Um, I think Boston does the greatest job in the world with the beginners, right? I'm sure you see it where every year he's got, 300 kids in there in the
Yeah.
Jones Center.
And on a quick side note, if like I said, for audience members that don't know, like I said, we're talking about a lot of people within the Tennessee and Georgia area as far as with youth wrestling, and Boston is probably one of the front runners. They have probably the largest beginner club in obviously in the state, but probably in the southeast too as well. They probably have one of the biggest ones with higher calling wrestling. So I just want to give a quick shout out to Boston and that crew, but let people know who that is.
Yeah,
but yeah, go ahead and keep going.
Yeah, Josh, you just brought up Josh there. Dude, the way that he set it up, it's so brilliant. And I keep trying to sell this to our local high school, right? I was like, this is the way we could do this to get, like, especially over here. There's more money in Cleveland than there is in Rossville. It's just the way it is, right? So I was like, this is the way we could really have a youth program. And we all know it. If you get 30 kids, you're going to keep about 5, right? 10, maybe 8. You're not going to keep them all. It's just not going to happen. It's hard, right? It's hard. But if you charge $50 or whatever, I think Boston charges like $40, $50. It gives them a shirt, shorts, and they practice, I think, twice a week, 3 times a week, and they do like the match day, right? Like a match day. And he gets the high school kids in there to ref matches of toddlers. And out of that, every year he keeps 3 or 4 or 5 or 6, and it just keeps funneling up, right? Why do you think they win every single year? Like, it makes sense, right? He's funneling those kids up, and he just keeps them and keeps them and keeps them. And he does the best job with that. And I keep trying to sell that point to the local high school. We'll see how that goes. They did mention to me that they wanted to do a youth program. Asked me if I wanted to do it. I was like, dude, I ain't got time to do all that. But there's got to be somebody in the community. But I love how he does that. And that's got to be the greatest way. But that's the market, I feel like, of kids that do they need to spend $160, $180 on a pair of wrestling shoes for 6 weeks, or would they spend $45 for a pair of Bmoney Beastins, and they wrestle the season? They say, hey, it's not for me. They put them on Facebook Marketplace, sell them for $20, and somebody else tries it, right? So I think that's the avenue. Again, I think it's great for everybody. I didn't realize like how much it has affected my son, but he's a good kid, man. Like, I don't give him enough credit, and I really blame it on like wrestling. Like, it's kind of gave him structure in his life, and right now you can tell he's struggling, right? Because he can't do anything. He wants to, right? Like, he went running the other day. He went and tried to cut grass with one arm. Like, he's trying to do stuff, but it's like like he started reading up on Algebra 1 the other day, right? And he's like writing it down, trying to figure it out. And he's like, I got to have good test scores. So I'm like, dude, that's brilliant, man. Like, so he's not wasting time, but the kid's a good kid, man. I mean, he's hitting teenage years, so I haven't figured that out yet. But like, I have to say, man, like, that sport has really molded him into a good overall person. And I want that. That's what this whole thing's for now. And I want to try to help as many kids do that as we can.
Good deal. So creative tips for our audience. What's a creative tip that you can provide for our audience?
When you visualize something, like, this is what I did, and I can only tell you how I did it, right? Is when I told you, I was like, dude, I need this color scheme, I need this, and I was kind of picturing, I kind of drew it out, like, which I draw like stick figures, but like, I was kind of drawing it out, and I was putting arrows, like, whatever's in your brain. Like, here's a tip I'll give anybody for anything they're trying to create. If it's in your head, and write it down, like, immediately, like, write it down. I got a notebook sitting right over here that when I started this, I got a notebook, like, it looks like a Bible, okay, of, I want to do this quote, I want this, I need this, I need this, and I just kept writing it down. Now, 90% of it I didn't even use, right? And not saying that we won't one day, but if it's in your brain, it's not going to stay there long, right? They say goldfishes have the brain capacity, like, their brain resets like every 3 seconds. So you could like stab them and they forget about it. Like that's why they roll this way and they just stop. And they go, somebody, I read that somewhere, something about goldfishes have like a 3-second brain capacity. And most people are that way because, you know, you got bills and kids and, you know, stressors in your life. So to you, to anyone, my tip would be, if it's in your brain, write it down. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just have something. If you're creating a coffee cup brand, right? Or if you're, whatever you're doing and you have an idea, keep a little notepad with you and just write it down, right? You can always come back to it, but you might not remember. So write it down. Text it to yourself. I've done that before too, where I had nothing to write on. I got a string of text, you know, this long and still saved in my phone where I was like, hey, that's a cool quote I came up with. And I texted to myself. Like, just always hang on to stuff because you might not need it right now. You might not need it in 10 years, but you may run across something that fits something you're going to do. And you're like, dude, you remember I did that. It's right here. So just keep things. Hang on to all your ideas, and eventually you may use them, you may not, but just write them down, text them, screenshot it, whatever you got to do. Just hang on to everything that pops in your brain.
Yeah, that's a great tip. That's a great tip. Yeah, I know. I actually have about 30 plus books of sketchbooks that I've had since '98 that I have collected. That I have of like original sketches of, you know, just characters, designs. You know, I always wanted to be like a shoe designer. So I mean, I got like ideals for like all kinds of just crazy stuff. Even yeah, even with the, you know, the book I'm working on, I've got original character sketches for that. And but yeah, hang on. That's a great tip. You know, hang on to those ideals. You know, write them down. I tell a lot of people just to brain dump. Don't keep that stuff up in your head. If you got an ideal, figure a way out to put it on paper. Talk to someone about it. Write it in a notepad. It doesn't matter. You need to get it down on paper. Because yeah, life is, it can be fleeting. You know, you think about a great ideal and then all of a sudden, you know, something else pops up, or you end up watching something and you just completely forget it.
Right.
Those ideals can be gold. You just never know. And so yeah, that's a great tip. Speaking of, you know, coffee brands, speaking of coffee brands, I'm actually drinking, one quick shout out to Elevate Coffee Trading, one of my sponsors for the show. And they're based out of the Dallas, Texas area. So they've been a great sponsor of the podcast, and they got a great vision, great story to the brand, and they always send me a bag of coffee, so it's always cool. So I'm always making some Elevate Coffee Trading. So shout out to Michael and his crew, as far as what they're doing, and like I said, they're helping. You know, they got a great mission as far as helping areas of need in the United States as well as in coffee producing countries. So hopefully I plan on going on a trip with them here sometime soon in the future. We'll never know. But yeah, I want to give a quick little shout out to them. I actually have it in my Skeletor. You can't see it too much, but I got a little Skeletor coffee mug here um, that I actually sort of love. I'm a big He-Man fan. I'm actually a big nerd, but I love He-Man, love, you know,
Dude,
Skeletor
I'm a big
and
nerd too,
yeah.
man. It's cool, man. Like, and you know what? You know, we're talking about being creative, dude. Like, I think we talked about some comic books the other day. I told you about a box I found and all that. But like, dude, I grew up in the '90s, right? So like, Stone Cold Steve Austin and The Rock, like WWF, and that was like the coolest thing in the world when I was a kid. You had to this day, like, we're jacked up, my whole household, right? Me and my boys. WrestleMania is next weekend, right? Like, we're gonna check it out. So I'm like a lifelong wrestling fan. I don't tell many people that because it's kind of nerdy, but like, I'm into it. I used to collect figures, right? Like, for a long time, like, I collected figures and like, which is really nerdy to be a grown man with a closet full of action figures. But like, I was into
Hey, but
that.
most of those figures cost they're in the thousands of dollars now if you still have.
Dude, I had an Ultimate Warrior figure, and you remember the Ultimate Warrior from the
Yeah,
early '90s?
yeah, one
He
of my
was
favorite
all,
wrestlers.
yeah, and he looked like a superhero, right? He was like all jacked up. He looked like he was on drugs. He was like, ah,
Yeah, he would.
he was wild, dude. They came out with a figure in '96 that was part of like a 4 set, right? It was like there was like 4 in this set. it was like him and Goldust, the Undertaker, and Shawn Michaels, right? It was like whatever. And that one figure, that was the only time they ever made an Ultimate Warrior figure to that for, I guess they finally did in like 2017, but they had never made one in green trunks, right? Wearing green trunks. They'd only made this one with him in green trunks. And when I was like 12 years old, I cut grass door to door for 6 fucking months, man, trying to make enough money. It was like $120. And back then, right, like you're getting like $8 a yard, $10 a yard. You're just a little kid, right? They're just giving you a few bucks. And I finally bought that thing. Well, I'm a kid, right? So I hang it on my wall and I'm going to take care of it forever, but I stare at it for weeks, just want to play with it. So eventually I opened it. And then I was so mad at myself that I opened it. Well, years later, I had a guy that had a collection and he had that I bought from him. And there wasn't really a whole lot in it, but he had one of those Ultimate Warriors. And I jewed him down. I feel bad about it now, but I jewed him down and I had one and I had it up until about a year ago. And a guy gave me a ridiculous amount of money for it. But so like it all kind of went full circle. You know, I spent 3 weeks as a 12-year-old kid just staring at my wall. Like, dude, that's pretty cool, you know? So like I think we're all kind of into something that we don't necessarily talk about, but like, dude, I love Spider-Man. Who don't love Spider-Man, right? Like, you know, we're all into something, dude. He-Man, I actually don't know a lot about it, but I definitely did see it as a kid a couple of times, and it was cool. So, man, that's cool for you. That's all good, man.
Yeah, I'm a hardcore. I don't. I used to have a lot of the He-Man. Actually, I was huge on Transformers, He-Man, and GI Joe. But I used to have a lot of the He-Man figurines back when I was younger, and a lot of the stuff, a lot of that stuff now is when I last time I checked, it's worth a lot of money. So I wish I still had a lot of those old collectibles, but you know, it is what it is. But yeah, I've always been sort of nostalgic for a lot of 80s cartoon properties.
Well, you grew up, you're a little bit older than me, not much, but you're a little bit older than me.
Yeah.
And Star Wars, I like Star Wars too, for everybody watching. I they re-released Star Wars in the 90s. I don't know if you remember that, but they brought them back out, the 3 originals, and then they started making the prequels, right?
Yeah.
Dude, I was like blown away with Star Wars when it came out. Me and my like buddies in 3rd grade, dude, that's cool. I'll be Darth, you'll be Luke, right? And for the longest time, we were looking for they re-released the figures too, right? From the original run, they re-released them. You couldn't find Yoda to save your life, right? Anywhere, right? Like back then, you couldn't find Yoda. Well, we were at Walmart getting groceries, and I was, this is 8, 9 years old. And you know how the guys are stocking the shelves, right? And I found the toy guy stocking the shelves, and he had one Yoda figure. And I was like, Mom, please, back then it's $3, right? It's like $3. And she's like, well, you've been bad this week. I was like, Mom, I swear I'll be good for the rest of my life, right? And she buys me this Yoda figure. The next day we go to school and we're out on the playground. We got like Luke and Yoda in the backpack and Darth Vader. We're digging holes in the dirt, whatever. I lost Yoda, right? Lost Yoda. And I had him for one day. And I have a Yoda figure just like it on my shelf in there that I bought at an antique shop because I lost him in 4th grade and I never got over 3rd grade, whatever. I never got over. But yeah, dude.
Oh my Lord. So, well, I mean, before we, sign off for this episode, what are some words of wisdom before you give out some, as far as your information on how people can reach out to you? What are some words of wisdom that may connect with with our audience and something that may resonate with them?
Don't quit. Just don't quit. Like, and I'm kind of long-winded, but I'll try to keep it short. Dude, we all wake up in the morning, and some days you feel like $1 million, and sometimes you don't, right? Some days you're going through your day and everything's just great, falling into place, and other times it's not, right? Like we have our good days and our bad days, but just wait it out, right? Like nothing's gonna last forever, whether it's good or bad, right? It's not gonna last forever. Just don't quit. Things get hard, man. Like whether it be finances or relationships or your business or your job or whatever it is, things are gonna get hard. Nothing's ever easy for a long period of time. And just don't quit. Just every day put one foot in front of the other and keep moving, because you know what? If you quit, you're never going anywhere. But if you keep going, you don't know where you'll end up. That's my 2 cents of wisdom.
I like that. I like that. That's awesome. So how do we heck, for people that's trying to get a shoe, a new pair of shoes, some V1s, how can people get in touch with you?
You can buy the Bmoney Beastin version 1s. They come shipped. These are not going to come shipped in this, but I was going to show it off anyway. These are for the version 2s. You see it? It's a drawstring bag. It says Bmoney Beastin Wrestling. I just wanted to show that while we're on here. You can buy the version 1s. They come in a black bag at bmoneybeastinathletics.com. If you scroll down, it's on the front page. Click, it's right there. We also have foot receiver gloves. They're really sticky. I got some back here. Back plates, anti-fog visors that are super cool, man. I actually, when I got them, I went into my bathroom, turned my shower as hard as I could, let it steam up, and I could not make that thing fog. Greatest visor I ever seen. Like, it's better than anything I ever had. Mouthpieces, compression sleeves. We do like custom stuff if you need anything. But really, the main objective here is the wrestling shoes. bmoneybeastinathletics.com. You can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at bmoneybeastin athletics, and you can follow us on Twitter at bmoneybeastin. I'm constantly posting, whether I'm trying to just entertain you, get your attention, or giving you an update. You'll see something from me almost every day, and sometimes multiple times a day, because my brain gets going and I never stop. So, but yeah, and if you want to reach out to me in any way, info at bmoneybeastinathletics.com. I will respond to you within 24 hours.
Hey, that's great. That's great. So, hey, thank you for everyone checking this out. This is with my bud, Jesse. Like I said, he's got a great thing going. Check out bmoneybeastinathletics.com. Get your V1s. Got the V2s coming out soon. And like I said, support your local creators, support your small businesses. That's the lifeline of any community. Support your small businesses in any form or fashion. So that's what I got today. And once again, hey, this has been me, Jesse, and this is the Creative Brew. Be cradle, stay inspired.